Okay, we are live. Well, I hope you guys had a fun day today. A lot of news out there, obviously, today. We got Argo selling their facilities, stock pumping hard today for Argo. We got Hut 8, their financial results. We'll talk about that. There's quite a few things to talk about there. We also have Bitdeer providing some information as well on their financials, or actually they released their financials. And then we got to talk about the boogeyman in the room, obviously, which is Cleanspark. We had the insiders selling right recently. Matt sold yesterday. We had Zach sell last week. And then we have obviously the news of the additional 300 million on top of the 500 million ATM that they did in January. So it's a total of 800 million. But there's possibly some good news to this, right? And we'll get into the good news as well. So there's always a silver lining to everything. It's just depending on the way you look at it. But let's not waste any time here. So we're going to get into the stories first, and we'll get into Cleanspark. But as always, you guys know the drill here. This is not financial advice. We're entertainment only. Please do your own research and invest in following coins and companies for full disclosure. If you enjoy this type of content, hit the like button, subscribe. Helps me out tremendously. Corrections will be posted to Discord, through Patreon, YouTube, community posts, Twitter as well. If there are any going to be, it's going to be this time around because I had to deal with Hut 8 numbers and Bitdeer numbers as well, which we'll get into that here shortly. Okay, and at the end we'll get into the Q&A as well. So hold on tight, guys. I'm going to try and get through this as fast as I can. Here we go. Okay, so really quick, we're looking at Bitcoin here. Obviously, Bitcoin had a really good day today. It wasn't the greatest day, but it was up. It was up, what was it? Up almost 2%, 1.97% on the day. It closed at 68,884, or sorry, 70,801 is where it closed. And then the miners here had a really good day, except for a couple. Obviously, we'll talk about Cleanspark here, but I mean, Argo, look at this. Argo just had a huge day on the news for whatever reason, which I don't think it should have done that. I mean, it was up over close to 50% up on the day. It was just crazy, but it was up 35%, up 57%. Sorry, 57 cents on the day. And then we had Digital being up 14% as well. Bitdeer was up just slightly, 1.4. Bitfarms 3.2. Cypher was down 3.38. Cleanspark obviously was down much more, but they kind of rebounded a little bit. They were down just a little bit more than where they were right now. But after hours, they went down to $17, I think, something and change. And they came back up to $19. I think there was just a little too much FUD and fear in there, and people were just selling like crazy. Really for, in my opinion, no reason, but we'll get into that. And what else do we have here? CORZ was up 5%, Digihost 7%, DMG up 8%, Hive was up 4%, Hut 8 was up 11%. They were up 20% at one point in the day, and then they came back down. I think people started realizing the data that was coming out was partially only for USBTC numbers, and then 1 month of Hut 8 numbers in there. We'll discuss that as well. And then we got IREN up just slightly here. Marathon was up much higher. Look at this candle on Marathon. I mean, it went up to the 0.5 retracement on this chart and came back almost all the way down. So not a great day for Marathon, but it's still good. It was in the positive. So Mawson was up 7%, and then you got Riot, SDIG up 7%, and Wolf was down 2.59%. So it was a weird day today in general. But let's get into the news stories that we have here, and we'll get through this as fast as we can here. So Argo Blockchain PLC announces closing on sale of Mirabel TVR. So Argo announced that it has closed on previous announced sale of its data center located in Mirabel, Quebec, for total consideration of $6.1 million. And the net proceeds from the transaction were used to first repay the Mirabel facility's outstanding mortgage of $1.4 million, with the remainder used to repay debt owned to Galaxy Digital. As of 28th of March, reflecting the payment made to Galaxy from the proceeds of the transaction and inclusive of the ordinary course of monthly amortization payment for March, the Galaxy debt balance is now $12.8 million. This is 63% reduction from the original Galaxy debt balance of $35 million. This is good, right? But it doesn't really help them out in the long run. They're still going to be in a crunch unless Bitcoin really goes up. And I think the reason the stock just pumped today was maybe some manipulation on it, because there's really no reason for it to pump as hard as it did. Okay, so that's kind of where we are at with it on this one. Okay, next here. Hut 8 obviously reported their financial results, and it was not what I was expecting. I'll be honest with that. So I was expecting to have Hut 8 numbers to be on there for the results. So I was expecting to have at least the quarter or the 12 months of Hut 8 information plus the 1 month when they actually merged. But what actually happened was USBTC acquired basically on the financial side of things Hut 8. So they were reporting 6 months of USBTC numbers and then 1 month of Hut 8 numbers. And the reason is because USBTC numbers, financial numbers, or financial year ends in June. So they did an extension to get it back up to where it's going to be basically from January through December is going to be the financial year on that one. So that threw off all my numbers and everything else that I have in here. But we'll take a look at those now. We'll go through those quickly here as well because we're basically starting fresh here. Because none of the data that I have for HUT 8 now corresponds to USBTC. So in my opinion, that is not good. Don't like that the way that they did this. Unfortunately, it is what it is. And we'll have to kind of deal with it, right? So actually right now I'm looking at Q1 numbers as being the real numbers for the company going forward until we get some more data on them. But right now we're going to have basically a month of data or a quarter of data on them. Going down here, so you can see my charts here or my graphs. They're all just for basically now USBTC on the numbers as far as things are concerned. If we do have any numbers for them at all, in some places I put it in here for the first half or the second half of 2023 numbers. And going down here, I don't have any data as far as what their hash rate was, what their ending hash rate was, any of this stuff. So all this data for at least the next couple of quarters is going to be kind of off because I just don't have the data for USBTC, unfortunately. But looking down here, they were able to squeak out a positive UPS, obviously, which helped. And they did some changing around here on the asset side of things. You can see now that the current assets are at 61 million in Canadian or USD. Before they were 379 million Canadian with HUT 8. And then going down here, they actually moved some stuff over into here. So they moved, it looks like digital assets held in custody, 282 million. Digital assets pledged as collateral, 100 million there. So that's kind of where things have gotten moved over from the current assets to the other side of assets, non-current assets. So we now have basically total assets of 740 million right now on that one, okay? Liabilities here, liabilities also increased here. And if you guys had a chance to get on the Sue's and Asher's Twitter space, they actually commented, they talked about this, that their debt on, excuse me, the debt that they do have here is pretty advantageous to them. They only have to pay on it if they generate revenue or there's, listen to the space by Sue on Twitter. They go into it in much better detail than I can present to you guys here. So definitely worth taking a look there if you're interested in HUT 8. Total liabilities is now 253 million, up obviously from the 99 million Canadian. So that's definitely an increase there, but things have gotten moved over and now we have USBTC's debt in here as well. Total stockholder equity is 740 million. And then we can see here cost of revenue. So revenue for USBTC and 1 month of HUT 8 was, I guess, 60.6 million here on this. And they actually broke it down to self-mining, managed services, high performance, other, and that's it on it. As far as costs are concerned, they actually broke it down per cost per business segment, which was nice. So I did appreciate them doing that. And then I ran some numbers here on it. You guys can take a look at it. We're not going to go too deep into it. But then they didn't also provide, at least I didn't see it. Maybe I missed it, but I didn't see the segregated costs for selling general administrative. They just provided the numbers here. I would have liked to have seen what those are individually. But they also, oh, I almost forgot. They got, where was it at? I think, let me see here. Where did I see it? They got 30 some odd million in, oh, where was it? Oh, where did it go? Where did it go? Depreciation, that's not there. Gain on disposable digital assets, oh, 32 million here. So they did revalue their, looks like Bitcoin hodl maybe a little bit, but they said that they didn't use the FASB rules. So I think that's going to be more revalued here going into Q1, potentially. But going down here after everything is said and done, they stated that they had 12 cents per basic diluted share, which they were using 51 million shares at that time. And, you know, they did it the way they did it. I'm not happy with the way they did it, but we'll have to get adjusted to this, obviously, going forward. I mean, it's nice that they had a positive EPS here. And also, oh, one other note here was the, where did it go? Depreciation here. They reported depreciation. They didn't separate that out, I don't think. Let me see, where is it? Cost of revenue. Yeah, somewhere I saw that they reported depreciation much lower than what we've seen here, at least through HUT 8's numbers. And I thought I put this in here. Maybe I didn't. Oh, there it is. Depreciation amortization, 10 million, right? 10 million USD. And then depreciation over here was for Canadian 10, so take out maybe 30% of that to convert over to USD, you're looking at 7 million there. And that comes out to be only approximately, was it 3 million here on the quarter, because they're using the 6 months instead of the 12 months. So if you take out the 7 million from that, they only reported about 3 million in depreciation at that point, right? If they didn't do that, if they include the depreciation with HUT 8 and USBTC, I think things would have been much different, where they would have been actually negative on the EPS side of things, right? So that's the way things came out. Congrats to them on getting positive EPS. We'll obviously have to keep an eye on them, see how they do with the combined companies, and we have the numbers for it then. Because right now, we're just getting USBTC numbers in 1 month of HUT 8. Really, really, really hard to value them as far as where they should be valued, because we don't have the true data on it right now, okay? So that's it on HUT 8. Let me know what you guys think of them. And obviously, my numbers here are going to be way off because I just don't have the data, the correct data. Okay, so you guys are aware of that. Excuse me. Let's get on to the next one here, which is going to be on Bitdeer. Obviously, Bitdeer also reported their financial results for the full year 2023 and operational updates. You guys can read this. I'm not going to get through this with you guys. But revenues definitely did increase, and they're also one of the ones that are kind of hard to track here as well as far as what's going on with them. If we look at them, currently they have about 111 million shares with 966,000 or so, roughly what they reported at the end of Q4 here. Going down here, my current estimate for the quarter is probably off on this because they have so many different doggone business segments that it's hard to track them. They reported 114 million for all segments. Cost of operations have obviously increased as well here. Cost of mine 1 BTC, this is now with depreciation because I haven't seen it, depreciation being singled out. So it's 27.5, but I'm guessing if you take out depreciation from that, it's going to come down. Bitcoin mine quarterly has been going up, which is nice to see. Debt to equity has been going lower, which is good to see. Current ratio, we would like to see that go. Actually, that's still pretty good, 5.6, so that's good there. And then we got total current assets. Those have been increasing here slightly, but we've also had current liabilities increase here as well. It's not too bad there. Going down here. So one of the things, we'll get into these metrics here in a second. Current assets, like I said, did improve a little bit here from Q3. And total assets also increased a little bit here to 639 million from 621 million, so that's good. Total current liabilities increased a little bit to 68 from 56. And then, let's see here, net assets went up to 332 million from 318, so that's fine. And then total liabilities and stakeholder equity went up to 639 million from 621 million. Okay, now in the past, or at least the prior quarter, they actually expanded on their different business segments where they actually broke it down. What was the actual revenue for each business segment? What was the cost for each business segment? What was the depreciation on each segment? They didn't do that this time again. So I spent like 3 hours redoing this spreadsheet here, trying to put everything back to the way they actually reported on the final fiscal year 2023 numbers. And everything works out, checks out. I double checked it. So everything should be good here. But if you see any mistakes, definitely let me know on it. What did I want to show you guys? Oh, revenue. 368 million for the year, which is good, right? 114 million for the quarter Q4. And then nice increase here from Q3, but we don't know what the actual business segments here are a little bit. We do have it here, but sales of machines, cloud hosting arrangements, that was never in here. So we still have some of these parts here for the revenue side of things, but we don't have it for the cost. So it's making it more difficult to figure out the cost. And then, as you guys know, in the past, I did kind of complain about it, right? I didn't complain about it. I just said it was kind of odd that the revenue and the profit margins on some of those business segments were a little bit higher than I would expect them to be. And I don't know if I doubt that's the reason why they stopped providing that. But it's now a little bit more challenging. I would have liked to have seen another quarter of information on that to see how that compared. But that's kind of what we have here. So 114 million for the quarter, looks like 27 million gross profit. That's an increase from the prior quarter, 21, so that's good there. Profit loss from operations, they actually had a profitable from operation side of things, quarter here at 3.7 million compared to negative 4.4. They still lost 52 million on a year though on it. And then going down here, profit loss, let's see here, total comprehensive income, they're down 5.1 million instead of the 1.7. They had income tax benefit expense of looks like negative 9.9 million here. And that's what drove them down potentially in the quarter. This is my estimates here, or my calculations based on what they provided for the fiscal year end quarter or fiscal year end, and then I just subtracted the prior 3 quarters to come up with the numbers here in Q4. Okay, so that's the way I did it. And then they obviously had a loss of 51 cents here, looks like, based on that information. They lost 56 million here for the year. And then they did start providing this kind of stuff here, like their depreciation, but they don't separate it out per business segment like they did before. So I'm going to try keeping a track of it here to see how things go forward. So I really don't know what the depreciation is just for like self-mining or anything like that. They just included in mining machines, right? 25 million in depreciation there. Property and plant equipment was 39 million as well. So that's kind of what we're dealing with here with them right now. It's just we're getting different data each quarter, at least. The prior quarter I got different data. This time I'm getting different data as well. And it's making it kind of difficult on them to basically see how they're doing and track them over the long term. Hopefully they stay with the same format with all this data that they have here. But based on that, we can see here that they're, let me see here, cost of mining minus depreciation, right? I don't have it in here because I don't know what the depreciation is for their self-mining, and that's kind of what we're tracking here. But for the year it was 23,000 here, and then 27,000 for the Q4 numbers on them. Okay. And that's basically it. I do think that they are still probably undervalued from where they should be. They do have pretty good growth. They said they're going to be growing, increasing their hash rate as well. So we can probably jump them up a little bit here, which is going to be nice. So they're definitely undervalued from where they should be. Maybe around $16 to $24 if all else is equal. And they're pretty profitable on the different business segments, especially if we're going the bull run. So I do think that they're undervalued right now based on that. But it's a best guess estimate right now on them. Okay. So that's kind of what we have here on this one. Excuse me. And then let's get into, I believe, all we have left here is Cleanspark to talk about. Okay. So I'll give you guys my thoughts on this first, and then we'll get into the actual numbers and things like that we have on it right now. Not that one. I wanted to do this one. Okay. Excuse me. I gotta take a sip. So last week we saw Zach sell about $9 million worth of shares. Yesterday we saw Matt sell again. The Cleanspark's explanation for Zach selling last week was they did a 10B51 form like 6-9 months ago, and didn't actually say when, but when the stock of Cleanspark was much lower. They said they did that because they have one, they didn't want it to be accused of insider trading or insider selling, and my throat. Hold on, let me clear my throat here really quick because this is going to drive me nuts. I'm sounding hoarse here. Okay, hopefully you guys didn't hear that. But they stated that they did that so they could sell in the future, and they picked Zach's birth date and like $20 a share or something like that. Okay, that's fine, right? That's definitely understandable. If they're doing that, that's great. I think if they're planning ahead, putting out sell orders 8, 9, 10 months, 6 months in advance, I think that's fine. And then we obviously had Matt selling yesterday. So I haven't heard anything from Matt on that. I didn't even ask him the question on it yet because I just was way too busy today with everything else. But I'm guessing with Matt, and I could be wrong on this, but I'm guessing with Matt, it was probably the same thing where he stated or he filled out that 10B51 form with the SEC several months back, whenever it might have been, that he's going to sell at a certain amount, at a certain price, at a certain date, roughly, if it reaches that price. So I'm guessing it's going by that. Then today we get obviously the news that they're amending their ATM, which a lot of people thought was another ATM on top of the 500 million ATM that they got from January 5th, I think it was, that they're adding another 800 million. So I think the market just panicked and sold as fast as they could, which even at that point doesn't really make much sense because stock is at $20. They're going to dilute much less than when the stock is at $15 or if it goes down to $10, which I don't think it will. But we obviously had that fear there. Listen to Mike, what's his name? Mike Alfred, speak on Twitter Spaces today as well. He said, the way he was looking at it, he said it was just an overreaction in the stock price because we've seen obviously a lot of these miners dilute through the ATMs in order to grow, right? And we saw that with Cleanspark. They pulled hard on that ATM in 2023 and 2022 as well, but they got to where they are now because of that, right? And the stock obviously has been doing really well because of that, because they've gotten to 16 exahash. They've outperformed other miners as far as growth is concerned in the last 3 years, and they're being rewarded for it. So with the 500 million that they had in January plus the 300 million that they're adding onto it right now, it's 800 million total. Obviously, the optics don't look great. I will admit that, right? A lot of people are panicking out there. I heard Rex on the Twitter space as well. He's kind of all, what's the word I'm looking for? He's obviously a little distraught, I guess you could say, by this. It kind of makes him think of losing faith in the Cleanspark and the team there. If you've been in the space long enough, which I think he's been in there long enough as well, you're going to see, obviously, the dilution getting hit hard, especially with these guys being such heavy assets, right? Or you have to basically get new assets, the miners, capital heavy expenditures on this. You're going to have to get kind of used to this, that this is going to happen. We saw Riot with, I believe 1 billion potentially, right? We also saw Marathon with 1.5 billion ATM as well. It's going to happen, right? But as long as it's accretive to investors because of growth, which I think it is, and their history so far has been dilute for growth, and we've seen that, and we've appreciated in price because of that. The market cap of Cleanspark was over, around 4 billion or something like that. That's the reason why. So I'm okay with it. Obviously, like I said, the optics aren't great because you have Zach selling last week, Matt selling yesterday, and now you got this additional ATM here. It kind of looks like some people are saying insider trading and things like that. But if they did the 1051B or 10B51 form months back, they planned this out that they're going to sell at that point, and they're kind of forced to sell at that point. So I don't think it's that big of a deal as people are making it out to be. Now, if there is insider trading and the SEC gets a hold of this, gets the wind of this, well, they're going to be in trouble, obviously, at that point, which obviously is not a good sign, which I don't think that's the case at all, okay? But let's get into the numbers here really quick on that one, and then we'll get into your guys' Q&A as well. Let me see where I want to go here. I want to go here. Okay, let's go down here, and let's get into, not this one, sorry. Here we go. So Matt, like I said, sold yesterday about 8.5 million worth of shares, right? Like I said, I think this is part of the 10B51 rule there that they use at the SEC, I think. I'm not certain on that, but I'm guessing that would be it. Going into here, we have obviously the explanation here. This is the first ATM that they pulled in January, right? You got the date here, January 5th, 2024. This was for 500 million so far of shares that they had access to. And then obviously the one from today is up to 800 million, right? So they didn't actually point it out here. I think it would have been wise to point out on January 5th, we had a relating share of common stock, at 500 million ATM at that point. We were increasing it to another 300 million at this price. At least that's the way it looks like because they're amending it. Now, going down here, if you look at it, you can see that it's a little ways down. There it is. Okay, shares of common stock previously sold under the sales agreement from January 2024, so obviously from January 5th through March 27th, we issued and sold 34 million shares under the sales agreement for gross proceeds of 500 million and net proceeds of 487 million. So they pulled everything out of that January ATM, which is actually pretty good because the stock price was much higher at that point, and it actually increased since then, right? So it's kind of counterintuitive. Right, you got the ATM, but the stock actually did really well. If we look at the stock here really quick, on Cleanspark from January through now, we can see here that, let me see here, this is January 18th, right? We had this kind of dip here. December, where's January 5th? There's January 5th right here. Stock price was trading at that point at $10.21. It came all the way down to $6.41, and then it popped hard, right? We got up to roughly $20 at that point where it closed. We came back down a little bit, kind of probably pulling on the trigger a little bit here on the ATM. And then we, obviously, when they possibly stopped diluting here, we went back up, right? So we got 500 million, roughly 480 some million out of that time frame here really quick. And we got obviously dilution of that of about 34 million shares or something like that. So there's that. That leaves them with roughly 300 million left to dilute. It's not that bad. And this dilution here, 487 million, that gets them a lot that they can do with it. And if we look at the numbers here, and then we have the 300 million that they could possibly dilute still. So let's look at some numbers here, and we'll get into Q&A here. But if you look at the numbers here, so here's 440 million right here, right? I'm looking at what could they actually get for that 440 million. We know that potentially 16 exahashes has already been bought and paid for, more or less. We think this might, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think the 20 exahash that they're trying to get to by the end of this first half is also fully funded before this ATM here. So if that leaves us at 20 exahash fully funded, this is where they could possibly go forward with the 400 some million that they pulled, right? So this would get them potentially to be able to increase another 410 megawatts and that would be approximately, let's see here, exahash, about 19.8 exahash at that point. So about 20 exahash increase in growth, right? We know that they want to grow to 32 exahash, I believe, by the end of this year. But this would get them an additional 20 exahash potentially, right? At a cost of $14.40. If that's the case, it's kind of what they've been buying here in the past. And then the miners would cost about $286 million. And then I'm estimating a cost of $375,000 per megawatt, right? It's kind of like the average side of things. They paid a little bit less on others, but this is kind of what they've been paying here, more or less. For infrastructure, we could increase that a little bit here, but that wouldn't, it might make a change to maybe around 500 million or something like that. But that gets us to there, right? So we got basically 20 exahash from the 20 that they're possibly fully funded to. So that gets us to 40 exahash potentially. When is that going to happen? I have no idea. And then if we look at the 300 million that they have left potentially, they could install another, 13 exahash out of that, 10 to 13 exahash, because we were pretty close here on the number of 300 million here, right? And they have to give some money back to the originator of the shares or selling the shares, the fees and things like that. So it might be a little bit less than that. But we're looking at another 13 exahash here, the same numbers as here, potentially. So that gets us to a total of increase of 33 exahash, potentially 30 exahash. Let's just go with 30 exahash here. From the 20, that gets them to possibly 50 exahash. Is that accretive? From the 20, I think so. So I'm not too upset about this, actually. And I've been through this or down this road with them before, where I was buying in January of 2022. Stock was at $9, right? Stock went down to $1 something. I was at a loss at certain points, like 70, 80% on the loss on it, but I saw a great growth story here with them, and I still continue to see that great growth story with them, and I've dollar cost average all the way down to them, where now my dollar cost average is around $3.53 per share on it, right? So I've been down this road. I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's something that the miners will do going forward, not something that obviously is welcomed, but I think it's something that is needed, obviously, and if they could get to possibly 50 exahash because of this, that's exciting. At least to me, that's exciting. So I think maybe, I wouldn't say they're going to get to probably 50 exahash this year, but maybe by the end of next year, right? They're going to get to 32, and then add on top of that, they're getting to 50 exahash. They're definitely going to be one of the big boys there playing with Marathon and Riot, which they are right now. So I'm okay with this. I'm not that upset about it. Obviously, like I said, the optics on this do look pretty bad, right? The timing seems kind of bad on it as well. But as long as we get growth from it, which they do have a history of getting the growth, so I'm okay with it. But you guys let me know what you guys think of it down in the comments, and let's get into you guys' questions here if you guys have any, and then we'll call it a day. So I just wanted to kind of get everything out to you guys, and hopefully this kind of explains everything as best as I can. But we'll obviously get some more data from them. We'll probably get some news releases from them also within the next couple of days to a couple of weeks, saying they're buying infrastructure or buying miners or something like that. I think that's going to be the path forward. And we've seen this before with them. They do an ATM, and then like within a couple of days or a week or something like that, they provide, hey, we're doing this, we're doing that, and the stock usually does pretty well afterwards. So, all right, let's get into Q&A here really quick. Let's go back to my screen so I can see the Q&A. All right, if you guys have any questions on Cleanspark, Argo, Argo, Hut 8, Bitdeer, shoot them to me. And this chat is always a little bit delayed, so it's like 15, 20 seconds delay between from what you guys are seeing and what I'm seeing as far as in the chat. So be patient. I will get to your questions. Sometimes I'm just overloaded with questions. We'll try to get through these updates as fast, or the questions as fast as we can. Okay. All right, we got our first question. So, Sebastian, any updates coming out regarding Sphere 3D? I believe they've just released some more information over the past 2 weeks. I'm not sure what information you're talking about, but I'll take a look at it, see if there's anything out there from them. But we'll see. I'll take a look at it. I think the only thing they provided was their operational update recently. I think that was last week too. Okay. Let's see here. I'm trying to catch up with the questions here. Okay, got that one. Did you buy the dip on Cleanspark? I did not. I didn't have any cash. Plus, I didn't think it was going to dip that fast that much. But I probably would have, if it would have dipped even more, I probably would have bought. But my average price is $3.50 some cents, 53 cents. So I'm looking at other miners that might be able to have more upside potential, right? As far as X multiple. Cleanspark, I already have plenty of shares. I got a lot. So that one I'm just kind of holding on to. And then if it dips to where I see if it's just unreasonable price for it, I'll probably start buying again. If it gets down to like $9 again, where I started buying it in January of 2022, I'll buy it again. But right now, I'm just kind of looking to see where things go. Let's see here. What do you think about Hut's new CEO? You're talking about Asher. I mean, it seems pretty smart. I was on the space with them today, asked them a question about, growing. They say that they want to grow their hash rate for self-mining, but they're being judicious about it and being cautious with, they think that the pricing on the miners will go down because they think that the new ASICs will come out. Currently we're like in the 3 nanometer generation. They're thinking that the 2 nanometer world generation will be coming out shortly. I don't know how soon those will be. If Taiwanese, what is it called? Taiwanese semiconductor grows to 2 nanometer. By the time they get the machines and everything else, I don't think it's going to be until sometime in 2025 potentially. And at that time, with Bitcoin ripping up much higher, I think the prices are going to be much higher on the miners themselves because they can just get an ROI much faster on them. So I don't know. We'll see how it works out. I'm wishing all the best for them to time this out as best as they can. But I think right now we're seeing obviously a lot of miners buying now and having options to buy later at a set price, right? I think that's the way to go potentially, but we'll see. Let's see. Okay, Sebastian, what do you think about post-halving for all the miners decrease in price for the short time? We could possibly see that, right? The first quarter is going to be really good for them, which is the quarter that we're ending here in a couple of days. Is going to be great for them because price of Bitcoin has been going up, and as long as Bitcoin stays up where it's at, it's going to be maybe a more muted drop in price for the short time instead of if Bitcoin was at 45 or 50,000 potentially. So we'll just keep an eye on it. But if you get dips, the way I look at dips is a buying opportunity. Be greedy when others are fearful. Be fearful when others are greedy. I keep saying that all the time. That's kind of the way I go about it. Let's see. Where do you see, or where do you estimate Cleanspark price to be during the halving, given the current dilution? Well, they're pretty much fully diluted with the 500 million. They still have to dilute the other 300 million, depending how much they dilute of it. But I wouldn't expect much of a dip here. If they dilute 300 million at around $20 right now where it's at, you're looking at, what is that, 15 million shares potentially, right? If my math is right, I'm doing this in my head here. And if it's 15 million, then you're looking at 20 million shares, something like that. So it's not a lot of dilution. Let's see here. Who has the best equipment into halving? There's a couple. Marathon's got great equipment. IREN's got great equipment. Cleanspark's got great equipment. Bitfarms is buying some of the newer stuff as well. Great equipment there. They're going to have pretty good joules per terahash mining metrics there. Who else? Riot, right? So there's a lot of these miners that are growing their hash rate are going to be in really good shape here. Cypher as well. You could possibly add Wolf in there as well. Let's see. At what price would you add to your Cleanspark position instead of IREN and Bitfarms? Like I said, probably if it gets down to like $9 again, I would start probably buying that as much as I can. But that's just me. My average price is $3.53. So if buying at $20 doesn't really make much sense. If I'm putting in $1,000 a week or something like that, how many shares can I actually buy when I can buy like IREN or Bitfarms at a much lower cost, being more undervalued right now because they're also pulling on the ATM and they're just not getting love right now. But I think eventually they will. So that's kind of the way I look at it. But I was buying heavily into Cleanspark, as the price was going down to $1.40. I was buying as much as I could. Let's see. Will any of these companies get to a point where dilution isn't needed? I think there's a way that they might be able to do this. It's basically my theories on this. I don't know if this would work out. But if they could huddle, excuse me, if they could huddle more into the halving or before the halving event and then sell through the bull run towards the peaks, they might be able to, use that cash to then grow in the bear market again potentially. That's one possible way to do it. The other way to do it is if Bitcoin sustains a much longer time frame where it stays up elevated, and as long as the network hash rate doesn't go too crazy, and they can have nice profit margins where the profit margins are like 50, 60% or something like that on Bitcoin, they can put money away or use that money then to grow going that way. But that might be still a cycle out maybe. Let's see. Let's see here. Question: Can you invite Matt on X Spaces this Saturday? Yeah, we'll see if we can get him on. It's hard to get him on because he's usually trying to be with his family on the weekends, or sometimes he's even traveling, so it's tough. I think we may be able to get Taylor on. I think they're their chief technology officer there. Can't remember the title for him exactly, but he's a really smart guy. We're trying to get him on also to talk about like the two-phase immersion cooling and things like that. That might be kind of cool. Let's see here. Okay. Love you, man. Love you too. What do you know? Wanted to know why you are not buying more IREN instead of you continue to buy Bitfarms. What is your reasoning? Also, on a scale of 1 to 100, what do you think the chances are Bitcoin breaks 85,000? Breaking 85,000 this year, 100% on a scale, 100. As far as why I'm buying Bitfarms instead of IREN, I think Bitfarms right now is a little bit more undervalued. That's the reason why. I think there's just a lot of fear in Bitfarms right now. So when there's fear, right, I'm going to be greedy on it. So operational wise, they're doing really well, just like IREN is doing really well. I just think the ATM and the CEO news right now is having a much bigger impact on the stock than it would than it is on IREN right now. Okay. Let's see. Question: Do you think Cypher will do an ATM soon? They might. If they want to grow, they're gonna have to do it. Unfortunately, everybody's gonna have to do that here, and they have done it. So that's all I can say. There. Black Alley, thank you so much for the super chat. Let's see here. Do you think all other miners will be releasing ATM offerings before the halving? Do you think IREN is positioned better compared to the rest because it's early ATM that is closing soon? So IREN has an ATM. Marathon has an ATM right now for like 1.5 billion. Riot has an ATM for like 1 billion, I think. So they all have the ATMs already. There's not much that's going to change there. They might actually get more ATMs as they get past the halving event. We'll have to see if they want to grow out even more on that. Let's see here. Midway, thank you so much. Wow. For the super chat. Let's see if there's a question. Your videos help me out. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Let's see. Will Riot be able to start heading in the right direction with its new facility? I do think so. The only question I have there is, can they actually run that facility at 100% or close to 100%? How much power can they actually use there? And will they have a PPA in place for X amount of megawatts? And if that's the case, obviously we'd like to know that. That's going to be important because that's going to dictate whether or not they can run closer to 100% uptime. Let's see here. How many shares have Cleanspark sold yesterday? I don't know. Would have to take I don't even know where to look for that. If you guys know where to look for that, definitely like to see that. But I don't know. But they said that they're already, they diluted the 500 million already, basically. So that's done for as of, I think, yesterday or today. So that's done for. Question: Are you still bullish on Bitfarms? Yeah, I bought it this week on Monday. I'll probably buy again next week as well. I'm continuing to, like I said in yesterday's video, I think as long as they don't get some kind of crappy CEO in there, I think the roadmap is already planned out for 21 exahash this year. So that's not going to change there. It's just what's going to change once we get a new CEO. What is his plan going to be going forward? And that obviously will dictate whether or not I buy more into it, or I just hold on to it, or if maybe I just get rid of it completely. That's going to dictate it. But right now, I think everything's just fine, and I think they'll get a good CEO there. Let's see. Trying to see if I can find a question here. There it is. Okay. Question: Is dilution not used for operations as they are not selling BTC to pay for costs? Yeah, so they did, what was it, 2 months, couple months that they did not sell much. They only sold like a couple BTC. So they have used that as well going into the bull run here, but that's obviously paid off for them because they were doing that in January, February. I think they did it also in November, right? Bitcoin price was much lower at that. It's double where it's at right now. So I think that worked out pretty well, right? I wouldn't want them to do that in a bear market where Bitcoin's going down and they're hodling everything and diluting shareholders because of it. I wouldn't want them to do that. My top 3 miners, well, they're going to be the ones that I have now. It's going to be Cleanspark, number 1, Bitfarms, number 2, IREN, number 3, potentially. But then you have, obviously, other ones in there that could do really well as well. But I'm just going by the data that I have on all the miners and the metrics. That's kind of what I go by. Let's see here. Let's see here. Why ads on live stream? So I didn't know there were ads on live stream. I thought the ads were only on the recorded version if you're watching it. But if there's ads in live stream, I'll take a look at that. Maybe if you're joining in, maybe there's there's an ad before you get in. Maybe that's it. Let me see here. Really frustrating holding Bitfarms. Yeah, it can be frustrating. I mean, it was frustrating for me when I was holding Cleanspark and Bitfarms, and I was down like 80% on both of those guys at one point. It's like, is my math wrong? Am I doing something wrong with my metrics? Do I have the conviction still in these guys? Right? It hurts. Let's see here. Trying to find a question here, and I think we're getting towards the end here. Okay, here we go. Do you think miners will dip more after having a or right before? I mean, it depends on Bitcoin. Bitcoin continues to go up. I think the miners may not dip that much, but they might dip for a couple of weeks after the halving, right? Their revenue's going to be down. People are going to be wanting to see where Bitcoin price is going up. But I would look at that as buying opportunity potentially. Let's see here. Thoughts on loading into Cypher in the short term, considering their recent gains, or do you expect a pullback? I mean, if you get a pullback, the way I look at it is a buying opportunity. But I don't know how you trade. I don't know if you're a long-term player in this or short-term, right? You just trade them in and out and go between the miners. That's up to you. If I was holding for the longer term for the next, a year or so, I would buy on the dips. Let's see here. Question. I think if you looked into Galaxy Day, you would see why I love it so much. I sold all my Bitfarms and bought it. Oh, Galaxy Digital Holdings, I think. I don't really track them because they don't provide the monthly production updates. Plus, I think they do some of their own self-mining, but maybe not that much. I have to look into them. There. Thank you so much for the super chat. Okay. Question, what are you eating for Easter dinner? I don't know. Whatever my wife makes. Whatever it's going to be, it's going to be good. We'll find that out. What are you guys eating for Easter dinner? Let's see here. Invest Answers just predicted 116,000 by May 20th for BTC. Wow, that's pretty bullish on him. I like Invest Answers, and he had actually Cleanspark getting to like $14 in his bull run. And we had a conversation about that. My price target was like $70. He's like, if it reaches $70, he's like, I'm buying you a Ferrari or something. I'm like, I don't need that. But that would be great. 116 by May, that'd be great. Let's see. Do miners ever buy back stock? Not the one. I've been tracking them for a couple of years now. I haven't seen anybody buy back stock yet. Okay. You said Cleanspark around 70 at the end of this year. Does the 800 million dilution change this? No. Because they're going to be growing potentially even more than that. So that doesn't really change it. Right? If they diluted just to hold onto cash or buy Bitcoin or hodl more, then that might change it. But as long as they're growing, and the growing rate outpaces the dilution, I think they'll do just fine. They could be $70 and north of that. Let's see. Do you agree with Paul Prager's no hodl strategy? No, I don't. I don't agree with that, and I also don't agree with IREN on that, right? I look at it a little bit differently. And Paul was like, I want to say, he was kind of like mean about it too, a little bit to Anthony, which was kind of surprising. There's different viewpoints on this. That's fine. I think that investors want potentially for the miners to hold a little bit. I'm not saying to hold for the whole cycle of bull, bear, bull, bear, bull, bear, but I think there's time to sell and then there's time to hodl, especially as we get into the halving event. That's usually a good time to hodl more because you're going to get the price appreciation and the value of the Bitcoin that you have go way up. So you can use that potential revenue or the increase in revenue on that to then deploy back into infrastructure, new miners going into the bear market potentially. So I just disagree with that. I still buy IREN, but that's the only thing that I really nitpick on IREN is that and them not reporting quarterly. But operational wise, growth wise, they're doing really well. And Wolf, I'd probably be into Wolf too, but it was just the debt that was scaring me just a couple months back, right? So it was scaring a lot of people. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Are you guys seeing the ads while we're doing the live stream? Does it actually pause the live stream for you guys and then you get an ad for it? Let me know. I'd be interested to find out. Let's see here. Okay. Will you stop covering miners when you sell? Will you cover other investment sectors? No, I'll still continue to cover them because I still think that there's possibly, if we don't have another bear cycle, which I think we will potentially, but we don't know because it's SPY Bitcoin ETFs. But if we don't have one, I'll continue to cover them. And if we do have one, I'll continue to cover them anyways because I'm going to be looking to buy back into them potentially for the next cycle. So I'll still cover them. Jared, thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate it. Let's see. Looking for a question here. We got another super chat. Thank you so much from LB. Enjoy your weekend too. I probably won't do a video tomorrow because tomorrow's Good Friday. I'll probably spend time with the family tomorrow. Plus, we're doing a live stream tonight, going much longer. Let's see. Any other questions? I think we're pretty much caught up here in questions. Okay, so that's interesting. I think the ad issue is a YouTube issue today. Tom and George couldn't figure it out on their live stream today. Okay, so they were having it too. Okay. Let's see. Right, I think that's it, guys. If you guys have any other questions, I greatly appreciate the tips and everything else and the questions. And hopefully, some of the stuff that we talked about today helped you guys kind of relax a little bit as far as what's going on with Cleanspark. I'm not going to try swaying you guys one way or another on what you do, right? I'm just looking at it the way I'm looking at the stuff right now. And we're still early in this space. We still have a ways to go. I look at any major dips as buying opportunities. And I've been in this for now 2 years and 3 months. And I've been just buying and buying and buying because I have a conviction that these things are going to go much higher than where they are right now, where they were back then. And it's all going to be much more worth it in the long run, but it is painful in the short term. So be prepared for the pain. And when you feel pain and you have conviction in something, buy more of it. That's the way I look at it. All right. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much. And gals that are in here. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. We'll probably do a stream on Saturday, cover what's going on with the miners versus Bitcoin this past week. And then I have a Twitter space on Saturday also with the BTC mining guy on Saturday at 2 p.m. Central Time. So if you guys want to join that, come on, have a chat with us on there. We'll see who we can get on there. Usually we get some pretty good guests on there as well from the mining companies. All right. So that's it. Hope you guys have a wonderful Friday tomorrow. If you don't have the day off, congratulations. I got to go to work for inventory, but I'll be there maybe 4 hours or so. I'm hoping. All right. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great night.